What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb Can Talk, and this is Proof. So in honor of it being Men's Mental Health Month, I wanted to do something different for the channel, and I wanted to make a video about healing. But in specific, I wanted to make a video about why is it so difficult for black men to heal. And I've really narrowed it down to what I think is one ultimate reason about why black men have ultimately accepted struggle as our identity. And I think that's because nowadays, despite what they'll tell you, this is the most headstrong and most determined, militant, honestly carefree generation of black men to ever grace the planet, despite what they may tell you. But because of that, black men today are no longer afraid of pain, and instead they're afraid of peace. What does it look like to be afraid of peace? Well, as a black man, that can be being afraid to stand out, being afraid to look weird, being afraid to be yourself, and take that risk that you've been plotting on. Being afraid to fail. If you ask a black man what he's afraid of most today, most of them are not going to say getting killed or anything. They're going to say something about, I'm afraid I won't make it. What'll happen if I fail, if I don't make it, if I can't retire my mom, X, Y, and Z. That mindset is indicative of you being caught up in capitalism, caught up in life's game, instead of realizing that you already made it. You're a black man. You already made it. You're already here, baby. So ultimately, being afraid to stand out, being afraid to be yourself, being afraid to be weird is costing you your peace. And a lot of black men are afraid of peace. A lot of black men don't know it, but they're running from peace. And that's not by accident. That's by design. I mean, we are, like I said, one of the most headstrong generations ever, but we are also one of the most desensitized generations ever. So while we may be more capable of militancy, we are still docile because we've seen militancy everywhere. You can open your phone right now and see somebody getting their head chopped off. Like it's honestly crazy how much access we have due to the internet today. But because of that, a lot of us have become desensitized to sexual things, violent things, and just things that matter, things that matter in society, things that matter overseas, or even in your local community. You just become desensitized to a lot of bullshit. A lot of fucked up things happen in our community specifically. And I feel like we've so desensitized because of the media and because of the programming and the lack of black-owned media that we've now normalized dysfunction. You can't go anywhere and see a black movie that doesn't evolve some type of black dysfunction, some type of black trauma, black struggle. I mean, the most popular black movie out right now is Straw, another Tyler Perry film centered around a black woman's pain. And I didn't even have to see it to know that that's what it's about. I mean, if you hear Tyler Perry, you know what it is. But that's just indicative of us owning nothing in our communities, including when we do get a black-owned TV studio. It still can't pump out anything good because he's made his whole entire career on the back of black trauma. And now that's just everything that we're fed, everything that we see. It involves some type of black struggle and maybe some triumph, probably not a happy ending. And it's just deeply and intrinsically programming our minds to think that this is normal. So as a black man, if all you see is images of yourself being tough and images of gangster rap and murder and kill and violence, not having emotions, not having access to that level of vulnerability within yourself, then you're not going to know how to be peaceful. Because all you've been trained for is pain. All you've been trained for is warfare. Mentally, you haven't been shown peace. And even on a micro level, most of the time, growing up today, you're coming up in a broken home. So you don't have mom or dad or either one maybe. And that damages you. Even the strongest people who come from single family households live with trauma from that intrinsically. And we've become so desensitized to it, and it's just become natural. That's what we expect. We expect to have baby mamas, and no one's talking about marriage anymore. No one's talking about self-love, and ultimately self-love is the best love because it leads to love with everyone else. Because if you have knowledge of self and you view yourself as someone made in the image and likeness of Creator, someone made in the image and likeness of God, then you'll be able to understand that everyone else you see is also made in that image and likeness. So everyone else you see is equal part God just as much as you are. So if you viewed everyone has that, or at the very least, every black person has that, then you will have so much love for the community. And the shit wouldn't happen that does. You wouldn't have so much violence in the community or so many just nonsensical bullshit disagreements. I mean, it would be a lot differently. Things would be a lot different if we developed that sense of love within ourselves. Which leads me to my next point. In order to heal the community, because I am very passionate about that, and I am actually brainstorming some community outreach and mutual aid events. But in order to heal the community, you must first heal yourself. You must first heal within. And a lot of people give you different interpretations of what that can look like, and tell you to go to therapy or start journaling or start, having a self-help group or whatever. All of those ultimately boil down to one thing. They're all different media for you to ultimately learn to love yourself. Because once you love yourself, you accept your pain, you realize that you don't have to persist in that. You have more to your story than pain. You have more to your story than a black athlete who didn't make it. You have more to your story than a woman who is stuck with baby fathers. You have more to your story than all of this pain that they've shown you. And a nigga who has to be on the corner selling weed, selling crack, selling whatever, damaging his own community, and in fact damaging himself because it leads to death or jail. So ultimately he's throwing his life away, and we can't afford that. As black men, we can't afford that. As a black community, we can't afford that because we've had it for literally generations, hundreds of years. We're hundreds and hundreds of years behind the 8 ball. In order to gain that control and to gain that self-sovereignty, to be able to cultivate that love within and then show it without, you must first master your emotions. Because life is going to happen. And until you understand your emotions, you will always be controlled by them. Because emotions, most people misinterpret emotions and think that your emotions are a precursor to your action. When in fact your emotions are just indicators. Your emotions tell you what you could possibly feel, what you could interpret from this situation, but ultimately it's up to you to decide how do you act on the emotion. Because your emotion is your reaction. But a black masculine man needs to be dominant over himself in the fact that he can observe his reaction, but in fact move on his response. Because a black man who's reactive is a crash out. That's what society wants. That's what the government wants. That's what the police wants. They want you to crash out so they can have reason to get your ass out of here. But if we slow down, take the time to learn ourselves and then love ourselves, we'll have that intrinsic ability built in to control ourselves and control our emotions. And a black man who's in control of his emotions is dangerous. That's what they mean by stay dangerous. You're not truly dangerous until you can control your emotions. Because if they know they can evoke a certain emotion on you, then they can control you. You're not dangerous. You're docile. But if you can control your emotions, you can control yourself. And you can control yourself, you can control your environment. I recently saw an interview with Cam Newton talking about how he doesn't judge a man based off what he says or how he acts, but how his wife acts and how his children acts. Because a man who truly is a dominant masculine man, not meaning dominant as in, an authoritarian ruler over his family, but a man who knows how to operate in his masculine energy will ultimately be reflected by how his woman treats him, how his woman interacts with others in the world, how his children interact with others, because your children are a mirror image of you. So in order to have that effect on women and children and have that effect on society and community, you must first cultivate that within yourself. So I don't know how long I've been going. For some reason, I'm way more nervous making this video than any of the other ones because I'm kind of spitballing, but this is how I really think, and I felt like I wanted to do something different with the platform and share it. Let me know if y'all like it. Please drop a comment. I almost forgot. Knowledge, we already know on this channel the slogan is not going nowhere. Knowledge does become wisdom until it meets practical application.